So unfortunately, it now appears that California gun laws might be coming to the entire US. Let's talk about this. But real quick before we jump in this video, if you believe in the Second Amendment and your right to keep and bear arms, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. I also want to give a shout out to some of the main sponsors of the channel, the first being Horsemen Customs. Horsemen Customs does so much more than provide California compliant AR parts to patriots like me and you, but they also do things like support lawsuits and legislation, which is ultimately geared towards abolishing those laws that actually make their parts relevant in the state of California. So Thorsten's is an amazing company. If you'd be interested in taking a look at them, I'll put a link down in the details section to Thorsten. I also want to thank Javier 6. For just $2.99 a month, you get access to a lot of amazing things on their app. This includes up-to-date local, state, and national legislative information, and you have the ability to do things like click the Initiate Freedom button, which sends out what is essentially an Amber Alert for firearms owners to members of your small group. So it's a really neat app, and if you'd be interested in looking at that, I'll also put a link to them down in the details section. So over the last few days, I've been getting sent a lot of articles, and a lot of people have been sending me DMs and sending me comments in regards to Joe Biden stating that if indeed he is the president-elect, ultimately ends up becoming the president, he is considering the Attorney General of California, Xavier Becerra, to be the U.S. Attorney General. And so for those of us in the state of California, we are very familiar with Xavier Becerra, and ultimately this does not bode well for the entire U.S. if this individual does end up becoming the Attorney General at large. And his appointment as the Attorney General for the U.S. would have very bad implications for gun laws, gun rights across the entire US. And this would ultimately lead to the permeation of all California gun laws into the entire US. So for those of you who are not in the state of California, who is Xavier Becerra? Xavier Becerra is the California Attorney General. He took over after Kamala Harris in 2017 and has been California's Attorney General since then. Before that, he was a career politician. He was in the House of Representatives. He was also in the state assembly, I believe, as well. And when it comes to gun laws, gun control, and his views on the Second Amendment, he is not friendly to us at all. He has made it very clear along his career that he does not support the Second Amendment. He has no interest in protecting the Second Amendment, and in fact, is very much geared to actually infringing on our rights and implementing those gun laws which ultimately strip us of our rights. And so I just pulled some examples to give you guys an idea of who this individual is who's now being said is on the short list to be named the U.S. Attorney General. So for example, he voted no on various bills which were actually geared towards prohibiting normal individuals from suing gun manufacturers or suing individuals who sell firearms. He voted against that, and which ultimately what that leads to is he, in his view, thinks that gun manufacturers, people who sell firearms, should be sued and held, I guess, liable for whatever misuse of the firearms happens from someone else. This is not new. We've heard people on the left all the time talking about that they want gun manufacturers to be able to be sued and be liable for actions and misuse of other individuals, which may not be tied at all to the gun manufacturers. And so on multiple occasions, he actually voted in favor of individuals being able to sue these gun manufacturers. In 1999, he voted against reducing wait periods for firearms. There was some legislation that was being proposed that would actually reduce the wait period timeline. He voted against that. He ultimately wanted the wait period for individuals to take possession of firearms and execute their Second Amendment rights to be prolonged. And so those are some historic things he's done. Now he's done a ton more things than that in his past, but now let's take a look a little bit at his most recent history, and you don't have to look very far. In late September, Xavier Becerra and the state of California actually sued the ATF and the Trump administration, trying to get the ATF to redefine what they believe are firearms and bring what they said are 80% or ghost guns within the definition of what a firearm is and subject them to background checks, wait periods, things like that. And I'll read you an actual quote from Xavier Becerra, which is related to that lawsuit. He said, "We can't afford to wait for another tragedy to happen before we can take action. It is for the ATF to prioritize the safety of our communities by calling these products what they are, firearms, and regulating them accordingly." So very clearly, he is saying that he believes that the ATF should regulate 80%ers. Now, 80%ers are a hot topic right now, and it's very clear that the ATF, if you've watched my last video, and I'll put a link right here, and you can watch that, it's very clear that the ATF is also targeting themselves 80%ers, and it seems like Xavier Becerra by his actions, by the state of California's actions, is also wanting to target 80%ers. Also, a lot of you are probably familiar with Xavier Becerra because he's the named defendant in a lot of lawsuits that involve California gun laws like Duncan v. Becerra, like Miller v. Becerra, like Rody v. Becerra. And actually going into his kind of tenure as the Attorney General, he made it very clear that he was going to try to enforce California gun laws and would fully litigate any type of case which sought to unravel them. And that is exactly what Xavier Becerra has done as the Attorney General for California. And even when we got favorable rulings like in Duncan, like in Rody, potentially in Miller, in Rupp, he has heavily litigated these issues. He has never let them go by. And also, I want to point you guys to, if you want to know more about Xavier Becerra, if it's not clear now, that he would be very bad for the US if he actually got that Attorney General's position. You can look at his confirmation hearing when he was actually up to be confirmed for California's AG. And there's a link on Firearms Policy Coalition's YouTube, and I'll put a link to that down in the detail section if you don't watch it for yourself. But some main takeaways from that: he was pushed on various gun control issues. One of them, and one of the statements he made, is that he believes that there are clearly limitations on the Second Amendment, that the state can put limitations on the Second Amendment, that he was very happy and glad that he had a horrible rating from the NRA, an F rating. He was very proud of that. And he also stated in those confirmation hearings that he would vigorously litigate any gun control issues that made it to courts, that he would not let them go. And that's exactly what he has done. And so Xavier Becerra made some recent comments about the Biden administration, saying essentially that if Biden takes office, if he is indeed the president-elect, that he believes that the Biden administration will be very favorable to the state of California, will let California implement the gun control laws, greenhouse gas emission policies and rules that the Trump administration prior did not let them. Also, Newsom noted that California leaders are closely aligned with Biden, noting that the president-elect's platform is essentially a California platform. So what does this mean and what implications does this have? Well, I think you can gather from what I've been talking about, this would not bode well for the US at large if Xavier Becerra got to be the AG for the US. We already have Biden potentially as the president-elect. Now, I understand that's being refuted. I'm not saying he's going to be the president, but just follow me here. If he is indeed the president, he sits as the president, he already has run on a platform of very heavy gun control. Then you have Kamala Harris as the VP. Another California individual, was the prior California AG. During her appointment as the AG of California, things like California's Assault Weapons Control Act was expanded and various other gun control bills and laws were instituted in California. So then you have her as the VP. We already see that the ATF is now ramping up actions and is targeting things like 80%ers as well as pistol braces. So the ATF is already turning on gun owners. And then you would have Xavier Becerra, the current AG of California, becoming the US AG. And it's another individual who has heavily went for gun control, has went for violations of our Second Amendment rights. So I already think we're in for a rough 4 years. But if this comes to fruition and Xavier Becerra is indeed picked as the AG for the US, I think we're in for an even tougher ride than a lot of you can anticipate. I think it's very likely that we will see a lot of the gun control laws that people have made fun of in the state of California be imported to the nation at large. So what can we do to try to stop things like that? It's hard at a federal level, but first, the thing you guys can do is donate to political action organizations like Firearms Policy Coalition, which I'm affiliated with, Gun Owners of America. There's a lot of amazing organizations out there that are fighting for our Second Amendment rights, as well as contacting your local representatives is always a good idea, and letting them know that you do not support the appointment and confirmation of an individual like Xavier Becerra to the title of the U.S. Attorney General. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and comment down below and I'll try to answer the best of my ability. Also, if you like this video and you like to support the channel, one of the best ways to do that is like, commenting, and subscribing. And make sure you hit that notification bell because that helps the channel analytics, helps us spread the word about the Second Amendment, also helps spread the word about things like this that are going on in the U.S. So as always, thanks guys for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and never forget this nation was built by armed scholars, and this nation will be maintained by armed scholars.